Background noise. Good evening and welcome to another edition of African Americans Ain't Africans, the Think Show that proves without a shadow of a doubt that the so-called African American didn't find his way to America in the trunk of a ship. I'm your host, the Indigenous One. And even though we're a day late of Martin Luther King birthday, I want to pass on some information about this cat and about a lot of these people who we think are there for our benefit. And if you look at it, they're really not. I know we have a love affair and the history and all the information that's been given to us. But I think when we get that information, we need to really think about it before falling head over in heels of it. We really got to think about what's being told, how we're being led, what words, what terms are used to get us in the position that we are, and we just follow it. First of all, I want to thank everybody for being with us tonight. And check it out. If you want to call in, get in on the conversation, got a question, got a comment that you can help make this a lot better, it's just throwing your piece in the pot. You know, give us a call. Give us a call at area code 205-336-2234. And you have the mic. Okay? Okay. So tonight, yesterday was Martin Luther King birthday. My little nephew asked me, well, why, if he's not here no more, why are we celebrating his birthday? Now, this is a little 4-year-old kid. If he's dead, why are we celebrating his birthday? And so I just went on to explain to him because these are the faces, these are the names that they use to control people. If it's a physical thing, emotional thing, we just act like we know these people personally, and we don't. We only know what other people tell us. And that's the point when I say the African American only does what they're told, nothing else. So what we're going to do with this Martin Luther King thing, we're going to check out this interview he did with Alex Haley. Now, many of you know Alex Haley. You know, Alex Haley also interviewed Malcolm X. Remember? So what was Alex Haley role in all of this? The guy who gave you roots, stole that story, gave it to us. We still believe it. That's called mind control. So we're going to hit on this tonight, and we're going to go through this Alex Haley interview to show you what was being said, what was he saying. We're going to go through it, and I'm going to have Infused Virgo. She's going to hit it from the other side. Check out what's being said. Check out what these guys are saying and what they're talking about. And also, we're going to show you who they were working for, especially MLK. So, Nicole, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. Listen, I want to thank you for, putting this out there, because a lot of young people, as we get further and further away from this part of history, younger people are going to have a little clearer idea of what they're being fed now, because they just flooded all parts of media with this Martin Luther King.
Mm-hmm.
But we want to show what this cat was about. And you tell us. We asking you. This is what we just presenting some information. If you think the information that we're presenting is false or doesn't work or is no good, call us and let us know. Because that's the only way it's going to get corrected. Speak up. That's why we in the condition we in, because we don't say nothing. So and we aim to we got to get out of that. So, Nicole,
Yes.
I'll be Alex Haley, and you be King, okay?
Okay. Okay.
And we'll just out of Kings, and we're gonna dig into Kings, what King says. Now, this was a Playboy interview, and I think 1963, 65.
I think it was 65.
Check this out. Check this out. Dr. King, are your children old enough to be aware of the issues at stake in the civil rights movement and your role in it?
Yes, they are, especially my oldest child, Yolanda. 2 years ago, I remember I returned home after serving one of my terms in the Albany, Georgia jail. And she asked me, Daddy, why do you have to go to jail all the time? I told her it was because I was involved in the struggle to make conditions better for the colored people and thus for all people. I explained that because things are as they are, someone has to take a stand, that it is necessary for someone to go to jail because many Southern officials seek to maintain the barriers that have historically been erected to exclude the colored people. I tried to make her understand that someone had to do this to make the world a better place for all children. She was only 6 at the time, but she was already aware of segregation because of an experience that we had had.
So, what I wanted to put in this comment right here, this is what I wanted to add right here. Where were the African Americans at this time? See, remember, we're just putting out, this is out for younger people. This is a part of your history. This is in the mid 60s.
Mm-hmm.
The term African American hadn't been developed yet. There were no African Americans.
Nope.
And you really got to get this because because they're going to be changing the name soon because a lot of people are going to be waking up to it. There was no term called African American then. What you have today are African Americans are clones of these people here that we're talking about in this time period. You understand that? Is that easily understood?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you see it. You see what I'm saying? There were no African Americans here. It hadn't got to that point yet. The point you are next, where you think they're going to be taking you. And now we're about to show you how King then got you into where you are. Would you mind telling us about it?
Not at all. The family often used to ride with me to the Atlanta airport, and on our way, we always passed Funtown. It's sort of a miniature Disneyland with the mechanical rides and that sort of thing. Yolanda would inevitably say, I want to go to Funtown, and I would always evade a direct reply. I really didn't know how to explain to her why she couldn't go. Then one day at home, she ran downstairs exclaiming that the TV commercial was urging people to come to Funtown. Then my wife and I had to sit down with her between us and try to explain. I have won some applause as a speaker, but my tongue twisted and my speech stammered, seeking to explain to my 6-year-old daughter why the public invitation on television didn't include her and others like her. One of the most painful experiences I've ever faced was to see her tears when I told her that Funtown was closed to colored children. For I realized that at that moment, the first dark cloud of inferiority had floated into her little mental sky. That at that moment, her personality had begun to warp with the first unconscious bitterness towards white people. It was the first time that prejudice based upon skin color had been explained to her, excuse me. But it was a paramount of importance to me that she not grow up bitter. So I told her that although many white people were against her going to Funtown, there were many others who did want colored children to go. It helped somewhat. Pleasantly, words came to me later that Funtown had quietly desegregated. So I took Yolanda and a number of white persons that asked, "Aren't you Dr. King? And isn't this your daughter?" I said we were, and she heard them say how glad they were to see us there.
As one who grew up in the economically comfortable society, insulated environment of a middle class home in Atlanta, can you recall when it was that you yourself first became painfully and personally aware of racial prejudice?
Very clearly. When I was 14, I had traveled from Atlanta to Dublin, Georgia with a dear teacher of mine, Miss Bradley. She is deceased now. I had participated in an oratorical contest sponsored by the Negro Elks. It turned out to be a memorable day, for I had succeeded in winning the contest. My subject, I recall, ironically enough, was the Negro and the Constitution. Anyways, that night, Miss Bradley and I were on the bus returning to Atlanta, and at a small town along the way, some white passengers boarded the bus, and the white driver ordered us to get up and give the whites our seats. We didn't move quickly enough to suit him, so he began cursing at us, calling us black sons of bitches. I intended to stay right in the seat, but Miss Bradley finally urged me to get up, saying we had to obey the law. And so we stood up in the aisles for 90 miles to Atlanta. That night will never leave my memory. It was the angriest I have ever been in my life.
Was it another such incident on a bus years later that thrust you into the present role as a civil rights leader?
Yes, it was. In Montgomery, Alabama, in 1955, Edie Nixon, a Pullman porter long identified with the NAACP, telephoned me later one night to tell me that Miss Rosa Parks had been arrested around 7:30 that evening when a bus driver demanded that she give up her seat, and she refused because her feet hurt. Nixon had already bonded Miss Parks out of prison. He said, "It's time this stops. We ought to boycott the buses." I agreed and said, "Now, the next night, we call a meeting of the Negro community leaders to discuss it. And on Saturday and Sunday, we appeal to the Negro community with leaflets and from the pulpit to boycott the buses on Monday." We had in mind a one-day boycott, and we were banking on 60% success. But the boycott saw instantaneous 99% success. We were so pleasantly surprised and impressed that we continued. And for the next 381 days, the boycott of Montgomery buses by Negroes was 99/10% successful.
Now, is something else about that bus boycott with Rosa Parks, that was a little on the late side, was it?
Oh,
Wasn't it?
yeah, that was a little on the late side, and also, in my opinion, it was planned.
Can you tell us about that?
Well, the reason why I'm saying it's planned is that there is one young woman who comes to mind, and what comes to mind is Claudette Colvin. Claudette Colvin was a 15-year-old pregnant teenager who refused to get up from her seat, and they put her in jail. And then shortly after, another situation like this comes about where you have Miss Rosa Parks in the place of Claudette.
So, what is that? What does that do? I mean, it's like the brother, right here is saying. It's like they set that all up.
Yeah. Yes, they set it all up. It was all a stage play. I mean, you have to keep this in mind. No matter how you're looking at the government or anybody that is calling themselves a leader, they are actors. This is a huge stage, and these are actors. And so, therefore, in order to kind of get a rise out of the Negro at that time, they had to put something like this to make them feel like what they had to say mattered, and we can do it, and we can get what we want, not realizing that was part of the whole entire sequence of manipulation.
Do you think that was part of the whole segregation thing? Because it seems like that's what it was to me. Let's just go ahead and integrate with everybody, and we seem to lost our way, or we were tricked into going that route.
I agree. And it's interesting because this just came to mind. There's a video on YouTube called how to appeal to the Negro consumer, and it was made in about 1954, 1955, and they went into detail about how the Negro spends their money, and if they like a product, they'll be loyal to it. So all of the studies and think tanks that they were performing at that time were looking at us, because you have to keep in mind they did have the so-called Aboriginal towns that were prevalent at that time, and had quite a bit of financial backing, and people were doing extremely well financially in them. So they realized that there was a lot of money to be made by the so-called Negro community, but they just had to figure out how to get it out of everybody. And I think this was the beginning of it, is how it's basically, while they're studying us and watching our reactions, and you have, Dr. King doing what he does, and all these other civil rights leaders and so forth doing what they do, they're looking at the financial aspect of how to gain. And so a bus boycott to them, for what they've received going forward, it was nothing. It was nothing. That was just, oh, let them have it, because we're going to get way more from them.
So what was, I'm like a lot of people in the chat. I'm like, these people don't want to, they don't want to be near you. They don't want to be in your jurisdiction or all whatever. And it's
Right.
like we're trying to get in but we're just trying to, I didn't get that. I didn't get us, somebody doesn't like you.
Well, you would think, you would think that would be the consensus. If someone doesn't like you, you just don't deal with them. But for some reason, they really did something. And I don't know how people feel about spells and things like that, but of course, programming and so forth, but they've always made it seem like the grass was greener on the other side of the fence. And this is, to me, a huge example of the grass looking like it's greener on the other side of the fence, not realizing that the whole entire time you had the greenest grass on your fence, on your side of the fence. It's just like, for example, what was the point of going to sit at a Caucasian-owned restaurant because they didn't allow you in there? But what was the point of going in there to demand that they serve you when they served you 9 times out of 10 they spit in your food? And then or whatever else they wanted to do. Meanwhile, they're trying to emulate your cooking style, and you did all the cooking anyway. You've done all the cooking so all this time. Our foods are, our seasonings are so forth. So we had a certain way that we cooked our food, and it appealed to us. So I don't understand, and maybe someone in the audience can help me with this, is what was the point? It's like, you can make a milkshake in the house. There was no point. It was a stage. It was an act. It was fake. Because I'm going to be honest with you, if I'm sitting somewhere and you come up and you spit on me and you pour a milkshake on me, I'm not going to sit there singing Kumbaya. I'm just not. It's not happening. So you can tell that it was fake, because most of us in this audience would have been like, what? Wait, hold on. I'm going to put hands on you. And, or a lot of us wouldn't even put ourselves in that situation. So once again, this civil rights movement, to me, as I started reading this and looking at other things, was a huge stage play. And they had all the actors in place. And you'll see as we get further how it was so.
Can you recall any other mistakes you made in leading the movement?
Hold on, let me get to that one, because I'm not there yet.
Just a couple down.
Okay. Hold on. Okay. Well, the most pervasive mistake I had made was in believing that because our causes was just, we would be sure that the white ministers of the South, once their Christian consciences were challenged, would rise to our aid. I felt that the white ministers would take our cause to the white power structures. I ended up, of course, chastened and disillusioned as our movement unfolded and directed appeals were made to white ministers. Most folded their hands, and some of them even took a stand against us.
Y'all don't hear me this morning.
Amen.
I don't get it. Maybe it's me, but I don't get it. And if we treated our family members like these people have been treating us all this time, we wouldn't talk to our mama for 60 years.
Mm-hmm.
But we run to this. I mean, it had to be something in that to make us do that. Because I'm sure everybody wasn't with it. I'm sure everybody got what this cat was doing, people who are like, where we are now back in that day. And I'm sure a lot of people saw it, but those people are probably the black sheep of the family. Everybody thinks they're crazy because of what they see. But these cats just gave away the whole economic base of the community by doing this. Because like you're saying, they go into those restaurants, getting shakes poured on them. Nobody yet has explained to me what was the purpose of that. You're advertising for the place where you're getting slapped at.
Well, just, kind of hear me. I'm going to go a little left field on this. But if you go back and you look at some of those sit-ins and meetings and so forth, if you notice, they always have white on. They always have a white shirt on or a white dress or something like that. And in Greek mythology and in Roman beliefs, when they would sacrifice someone, they would always wear white. So I think that this was a form of like maybe a political or a sacrifice in a sense to say, hey, you know what, I'll do it. I'm down because, I'll be part of the civil rights movement so I can have my best life. Because if you look up the people like what was the group, the Arkansas 8, I think that was, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was a group of young men and women who went to school, with some other kids, with the white kids, the desegregation thing, and in that they always wore white to the school, but they all became prominent people in the civil rights movement, along with the LGBTQ movement and all that stuff too. So if you look those people up, you'll see that they kind of followed in the footsteps. The Little Rock Nine, they followed in the footsteps of what Dr. King, I guess, was supposed to have set up. And then if you look at Ruby Bridges, anybody in their right mind, if you really are thinking about the heinous things that have happened at the hands of these opposing people, why would you want to send your 6-year-old daughter to school with them? That was a sacrifice. That it wasn't a like one of the sacrifices where they are killing you, but it was a kind of an allegiant type of sacrifice, in my opinion.
Well, going back to the interview, This is Haley. Haley said their stated reason for these are the white churches, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
The stated reason for refusing to help was that it was not the proper role of the church to intervene in secular affairs. Do you agree with this view?
Most empathetically, the essence of, I cannot say these words, you guys, so excuse me, the epistle of Paul is that Christians should rejoice at being deemed worthy to suffer for what they believe. The projection of the social gospel, in my opinion, is the true witness of a Christian's life. This is the meaning of the true ecclesia, the inner spiritual church. The church once changed society. It was then a thermostat of society, but today I feel that too much of the church is merely a thermometer, which measures rather than molds popular opinion. Oh, I got something on that one.
Are you speaking of the church in general or the white church in particular?
The white church. I'm sorry to say, its leadership has greatly disappointed me. Let me hasten to say there are some outstanding exceptions. As one whose Christian roots go back through 3 generations of ministers, my father, grandfather, and great-grandfather, I will remain true to the church as long as I live. But the laxity of the white church collectively has caused me to weep tears of love. There cannot be deep disappointment without deep love. Time and Time and again in my travels, as I've seen the outward beauty of white churches, I have had to ask myself, what kind of people worship there? Who is their God? Is their God the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? And is their Savior the Savior who hung on the cross at Gothica? Where, excuse me, where were the voices when when a black race took upon itself the cross to protest against man's injustice to man? Where were their voices when defiance and hatred were called for by white men who sat in these very churches?
Question. You're gonna have to now. See, this is what I'm saying, man. You got to make sense to me. And I think if you give young people these ideas, it's going to mess them up. Now, this is the question. Now, what is this? But the laxity of the white church collectively has caused me to weep tears of love. What does that mean?
That, to me, I guess means that even though you proverbially dump on me, I'm still supposed to be happy you're doing it. I don't know what else to think about that. You want me to finish reading the rest of it? Because it's a little like...
I'm going to skip down to the next one.
Okay.
I'm going to get to those pictures too.
Okay.
That I want to put up.
Okay.
Do you feel that the Negro church has come any closer to the projection of a social gospel in its commitment to the cause?
I must say that when my Southern Christian Leadership Conference began its work in Birmingham, we encountered numerous Negro church reactions that had to be overcome. Negro ministers were among other Negro leaders who felt they were being pulled into something that they had not helped to organize. This is almost always a problem. Negro community unity was the first requisite if our goals were to be realized. I talked with many groups, including one group of 200 ministers. My theme to them being that a minister cannot preach the glories of heaven while ignoring social conditions in his own community that cause men an earthly hell. I stressed that the Negro ministers had particular freedom and independence to provide strong, firm leadership, and I asked how the Negro would ever gain freedom without his ministers' guidance, support, and inspiration. These ministers finally decided to entrust our movement with their support, and as a result, the role of the Negro church today, by and large, is a glorious example of the history of Christendom. For never in Christian history, with a Christian country, have Christian churches been on the receiving end of such naked brutality and violence as we are witnessing here in America today. Not since the days of the Christian in the catacombs has God's house as a symbol weathered such an attack as the Negro churches. You want me to continue?
Amen.
Okay. I shall never forget the grief and bitterness I felt on that terrible September morning when a bomb blew out the lives of those 4 little innocent girls sitting in their Sunday school class in the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham. I think of how a woman cried out, crunching through broken glass, "My God, we're not even safe in church." I think of how that explosion blew the face of Jesus Christ from the stained windows. It was symbolic of how sin and evil had blotted out the life of Christ. I can remember thinking that if men were this bestial, was it all worth it? Was there any hope? Was there any way out?
Do you still feel this way?
No, the time has healed the wounds and buoyed me with the inspiration of another moment which I shall never forget. When I saw with my own eyes over 3,000 young Negro boys and girls, totally unarmed, leave Birmingham's 16th Street Baptist Church to march to a prayer meeting, ready to pit nothing but the power of their bodies and souls against the Bull Connor police dogs, clubs, and fire hoses. When they refused, Connor bellowed, ordered to turn back. He whirled and shouted to his men to turn on the hoses. It was one of the most fantastic events of Birmingham history that that these Negroes, many of them on their knees, stared unafraid and unmoving at Connor's men with those hose nozzles in their hands. Then slowly the Negroes stood up and advanced, and Connor's men fell back as though hypnotized, as the Negro marched on past to hold their prayer meeting. I saw there, I felt there for the first time the pride and power of nonviolence.
So do you think that because that's where I get into where it's all filmed. You know, it to me it's not okay. So like they have a park in Birmingham where all that went down, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they have cast iron replicas of dogs, you know, biting. It's just, I mean, it's not really a park because if you think of a park is a place, you know, you go take your girlfriend, your wife, you know, little blanket, a bottle of wine, you know, a park, you know, where you can go hang out. This park doesn't have that feel at all. It's like they have a picture of two children in jail. We ain't afraid of your jail. It is right in the park, and you know they try to make it. I don't get it. It's like they're trying to keep that on your mind all the time, so your mind can be muddled up. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm seeing in the social aspect of where we live, because we like to always go back on that history without examining it, asking questions. We just whatever the narrative is, we just go with it, no matter how dumb it sounds.
Right.
We don't question it. We don't give our children a chance to learn from it. We just go, you know. So, you know, that's what I don't get. And that song, We Shall Overcome, that's the worst song I ever heard. So you can keep going.
No, you know, I'm sitting here and okay, you guys remember when the bombing happened in New York? They bombed the Twin Towers and George Bush just sat in the classroom reading a book, and he had been told that this was going to happen. Doesn't it I kind of get the feeling that he was told, we're going to bomb a church. We're going to bomb a church. We're going to bomb a church. To make this stick and really, really get it going, we got to bomb this church. And I think he knew the whole entire time, because there's nothing that's random in this movement. It was planned.
You say all of it, huh?
Yeah.
I mean the thing on TV, because people always say, well, how do you say that? What do you mean? I'm like, because we lost our whole economic base.
Mm-hmm.
That's how. Because
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Because I don't think there's anywhere in the world that you go where there aren't indigenous people. I mean, there's Russia, China, America, Africa. They're going to be people who are connected to that land because that land created those people. You know, those are people who are on that land, who when the land decided to create animals, tigers, elks, they created, people were created too.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, whatever land mass you're on, that's the land that you were born to.
Right.
And I don't see how we don't see that. Even because Martin Luther King even told you that. And so go ahead. And this last thing, and I'm sorry, I have to agree with you. It was a sham. Yeah. that still rages on today.
I mean, and throughout this whole entire interview, he doesn't refer to anyone as African American or anything else. He says Negro. And if we all go back and we look, we know that Negro equates to what they refer to as American Indian. So it's just like he's telling you who you are all throughout this interview. But it's like he's also telling you, oh, I'm giving away your freedom pretty much, but we're gonna make it look like it because this and the other. When it wasn't less, it was less than 100 years ago that we were doing whatever we wanted to do on our on our land. And at the same time of this so-called civil rights movement is when they changed us to being colored, negro, whatever, black, whatever. And then they took the Siberian individuals that came from over yonder over there, and they on paper, because I know they did this before, they called them Native American before, but on paper they started referring to those people as Native American. So they switched who you were and put them in place of who you were supposed to be, and then you became someone else, along with being the financial support for the economy.
Yeah, I just think, one of the things I remember where the community was really changing were, all the brothers used to, go fishing. And this was in Los Angeles. Would go out to the docks fishing. Brothers would drive up and down the street selling fish and stuff. And all the fish markets, brothers were selling. It was good too.
Mm-hmm.
Then all of a sudden they just started slipping away. And it's like we haven't really, when I say we gave up our economic base, that's what I mean. We just wanted everybody else stuff. And even if you look through social media now, all you see is Negroes at other restaurants showing off food that other people make.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we just gave up on ourselves. So this is what I'm saying to the young ones. Later for all this is not the history you want to follow. If you study it so you can know not what to do, because the majority of us are still doing that work, that Martin Luther King work. Nicole, I don't know if you want to still keep reading, or did you want to go into the images that you sent me?
Let's go into the images. I mean, if we want, we can go back to the thing, because there was something in here about Gandhi too that I saw, but we'll talk about that a little later.
Okay. Let me, I will, this one.
Okay.
Okay.
No, not that one.
Oh, my bad.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
You know how in a part of the interview he talks about how the church wasn't standing up, and how church and state and all that stuff like that. Just as a fact to throw out there, the church, especially the Catholic Church, has always, since they decided to develop a government on this land, the Catholic Church has had its foot in the government and the Queen of England. What you think you know is not what you know. So,
right.
So that's been an always thing.
Right, and what also that civil rights movement showed me is that it showed that if we go ahead and integrate, we'll be taken care of. These people will pay us back for everything they've done. Mm-hmm. And it kind of gave us this lazy, I don't have to learn nothing. I can just be whatever I want. It's kind of like, I mean, seriously, it changed us. Going from, what was that, Negro to Black? Mm-hmm. That was a major component in that. Because it's like they're leading you to the gallows.
Oh, yeah.
Or that Pied Piper type thing where they're just blowing the flute and we're just skipping along.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, this image right here. Tell us about that.
So, as you can see, it says African American and Jewish relations, but we all know that African American was not a term that was used at that particular time. But he had a very close relationship with Rabbi Jacob Rothschild. And if you know anything about the Rothschilds, they basically had a lot of financial influence on American soil at that time and still do. And if you notice, also they have W. Du Bois here, and W. Du Bois was also a what you would consider a Negro eugenicist, because he firmly pushed that a lot of people not a lot of our people be limited on children, that how many children they should have, and so forth. And worked closely with Margaret Sanger and Walter B. Pleckard and others to kind of put in the things to play that are going on now. So these individuals had, hindsight before King came along, and King came along and finished up the little tasks that they had. That because, as you could tell, the Marcus Garvey move really didn't work, because as we went over the Frederick Douglass speech, he was very adamant about that not happening. So I guess they realized, oh, we can't take the Negro away from the land, but we can make them do this. And so they figure out a way of manipulation of getting us on, or some of us on, that civil rights page.
Okay, here's a question I have, because you got W.E.B. Du Bois up there.
Mm-hmm.
Why is he buried in Ghana?
Because he migrated to Africa. That's why.
But do you think he was African before it started?
No.
Do you think? How? Because that's what I'm saying. They only tell you what they want you to know. Mm-hmm. Could he have been a South African, lived in Africa? His parents was from Ghana. His parents, lived in Ghana or whatever, and had him over there, and they used him how they use most people. Just sit them over here. I mean, I'm saying, see the history, like you're telling us the history of the civil rights thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's.
It sounds. It's they're not going to tell you.
Right.
All these people are just, like you say, actors.
Right.
I mean, how do you know where they come from? How do you know Marcus Garvey came from Jamaica?
Exactly.
He could have came from another island. True. And that's what I'm saying. We don't push that. Whatever the story is pushed on us, we just swallow it. So I'm asking somebody like W.E.B. Du Bois, obviously he was royalty in the Northeast. Why would he go? Why would he be buried in Ghana?
Because he was Ghanaian.
I mean, I don't know, but I mean, it's worth. I mean, it ain't even worth asking no more, because there's some other things we have to do. But that's what and plus, like you said, he was hanging with the Rothschilds, and all. Mm-hmm. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
They tell you anything.
Yep.
And we just, that's what mouths say. I guess that's how it is. That's how we roll. All right, so let's do this other one.
Okay.
This is what I'm saying, man. These guys, you can tell us anything, and then we'll argue the point that they making. We'll argue the point, and we don't even know.
And it was also a Jewish man who created the curriculum for African American studies, who he was also close, and they were all intertwined with each other.
Right. Oh, I'm sorry. Wrong one. That's sorry. Yeah. So how do we know? How do we honestly know?
We don't.
What these people are saying. We don't even think about it.
Right.
We don't even think about it. Whatever they say, we just, okay. That's how it is. Okay. Okay, now this the cold one right here.
Well, this is Jacob Rothschild. His wife was part of the Bloomberg family. Check them out. And then you got Coretta, and then you have Dr. King. So they were all very close friends. They socialized together often. And Jacob Rothschild was actually noted as saying that Dr. King was going to be the remedy for racial relations.
How'd that turn out?
Doesn't look like it turned out very good.
So this was the credit card for the whole civil rights movement.
Mm-hmm. The whole funding.
So you see how we're tricked out of things? We can't keep going down this path. I mean, so we better do a quick right turn, left turn, U-turn, whatever, because this is the direction we're going. Right?
Right.
This is the direction we're going today.
I mean, it's everybody talks about like the Illuminati and the Rothschilds and Bloomberg and George Soros. Those are all people on the same hand. I mean, and they've just migrated a little more into the future. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg is like a grandchild of a Rothschild or something like that. So they keep their stuff intermingled within their family because they know that they have the so-called African American to foot the bill. I mean, the African American spends almost $3 trillion on stuff that's not created within the community that they come from. So we basically support the global economy. And I'm not saying we're African American, but you guys understand what I mean. We rely on everyone else for everything. We for some odd reason, we refuse to support each other in a business.
We refuse to support the land that your ancestors left for you. Fuck that, nigga. I want some Air Jordans. That's how we are. So you can imagine what's the fate of those people are.
Mm-hmm.
People that think like that. So do you think all this new stuff, these museums and all this stuff are funded by the same people who bought him up?
Of course.
Because
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
We could take all of this back and go back and look at that eugenics chart that we had pulled up at that time, because you would start to see how these people in the picture, the Rothschild Bloomberg, were also huge in the Aryan Society of Brotherhood or whatever they called it, as well as eugenic studies.
Do you understand what she just said? These cats was talking about eugenics.
Mm-hmm.
When your mama, your grandmama, and your granddaddy was kids, they was talking about getting rid of you. So sorry if I don't go along with the narrative. You got to look at what it is. You got to look at the reality of it. You got to look at what these ministers are doing. But it's really not the ministers. It's really the people that follow the ministers.
Mm-hmm.
It's really the people that can be led astray by this whole religious, all this crap.
I mean, and then too, when you look at the churches that a lot of the African American people attend, what are they really doing for the community that they're in? I mean, because the houses are ran down. The water is not, the water is worse than it normally would be. What are they doing? You go to church, you pay your tithes, and they go home to their big house with their helicopters or whatever they have. They are doing nothing for the community. They are not. And I'm not knocking anybody's belief in the way they believe in God or anything like that, because that's a choice that you make. But when you really look at the real part of it, what are they doing to help the community that they are in? Nothing. They are literally in bed with that Chinese restaurant that's opened up down the street, and then that corner store that was sold to the Afghanis who came here and got $12,000 per person because they came to America. And so all these people are making money off of the Negro community, and a lot of people are just saying, here, take my money, here, you can have it, here, I'm going to buy myself into heaven, and all this stuff. That these tools are used to manipulate you, or manipulate those beings, and they know it, and they know that that's basically what they're there for. And while you stay in poverty trying to keep up with the Joneses, they're advancing, and we have nothing. We're 10%. We're 10% of the global market, when at one time we were quite a large percent of the global market. Because
You have
yeah, I'm sorry.
you have a question. Somebody's asking you a question.
If Martin was trying to get us that check, then how could he be wrong? A check for what? I mean, elaborate on that. I mean, are you talking about reparations?
No. I'll. Hey, Free Pow Pow, do this. Find the speech Malcolm X is talking about that March on Washington. Malcolm X talks about it because he was there. You will get the most out of what they were doing when they went to Washington, D.C. if you listen to that speech by Malcolm X. I don't know if it's called the March on Washington or what, but fine. He'll tell you everything you need to know about it. Dude, the sister just told you that this was a setup. It was a movie. Remember, they paid. This was when Negroes was just getting TV, really getting comfortable with TVs.
Can I interject, Carrie, if you don't mind?
Oh, sure.
Thank you. Okay, Free Papao, we're coming to get that check. That man was not playing games and so forth that you're saying right here. Okay. In 1862, my great grandfather had a quite a large amount of land. Still within my family, or with my lineage, excuse me. And there is no check that can there's no check that can apply the value of the resources that are on this land that belongs to the lineage that I came from. So there's no amount of their money which is not really valuable, because it's gold that you really want, because the money has no value. That's why they're able to make it and give it to you, and you spend it, and you're basically putting yourself in more debt by using their notes. So if you knew anything about how this system was actually set up, you wouldn't say anything like that about a check, because of the fact that you would realize that they took things away from you that their notes cannot replace. And as American Indian, Aboriginal, American people, the people that are in this chat, as well as the people that we speak to on a regular basis, we're not looking for a check. We're looking for what's ours back. And I would really appreciate if you would stop trying to promote yourself in this chat, because that's very unprofessional. We're talking about something right now, and you're being very disrespectful towards the host and myself. If you want to promote your stuff, do that elsewhere. Thank you. Okay.
Martin Luther King, listen, the dude got killed. I think he knew what he was doing. He couldn't do it no more. So, he just gave it up. And that's something more than I've ever done. Plus, he was the cat that I heard say the Negro finds himself exiled in his own land, that gave me the kick in the butt to start African Americans Ain't Africans. Because sometimes you think these cats are growing up because it's how it's given to you. what they teach you about this. You believe what they say, but then you start listening to other people talk about them, the people who are around him. You get to learn about other people in other places are learning things about him. And it brings you together. You can't think of the same person. You can't even think of the way you thought about yourself. Your ideas about yourself are going to change. So this is not throwing no hate or no mud or nothing at this brother. This is just things that we can't keep doing, because if you look at that whole movement, and many of us wasn't back there, but if you look at that whole movement and what it created, because by now it should have created something. If you got that was what, 50, 60 years ago? If you got a 60-year-old son, by 60 years old, he should know how to do something.
Mm-hmm.
He should know how to do something. So after 60 years of this civil rights movement, what have we seen? Seriously, you gave up your economic base. Go ahead.
Yeah, we gave up our economic base. The family, the lineage structure, the family structure suffered. We have seen our areas that we reside in, our neighborhoods, become just desolate and torn down. Our schools, we get the books 5 years later after they've been used by every other school system. Basically, nothing has really improved for us as a people. I mean, yeah, you have a few people who are famous, and you have the millionaires and billionaires like the Jay-Z's and all that stuff like that, but they're not really even reaching back into the community and helping rebuild the community either, because they've made agreements to do what they do. They are controlled by those powers that run those industries. So in the civil rights movement really did nothing but cause further destruction, mentally, physically, and spiritually. It didn't do anything. There's no positives to the civil rights movement, because we have always been able to vote. That was the way of our people. We voted who we wanted to represent us in our clans and tribes. We've always been free on our land. That was the way it was. We went where we wanted to go. So they came along and said, now you can't go where you want to go. And we said, oh, okay. How does that work? I mean, so it really, in my opinion, and I'm sorry if I'm rambling, the civil rights movement was a joke.
I don't think it's the job of these so-called celebrities, because, like you said, we see who celebrities hang out with. We know what celebrities do. We know what these celebrities do to get, their daily bread. So I think it's just part of, the people. Yeah, and what I mean by the people, people, you're not invited into their games. Cats always crack me up. They say, "Oh man, that's my team." If that's your team, get us tickets. Then we ain't got you. Now we don't want to talk. So we keep putting all whatever semblance of life we have in us. We always give it away. And look at you sideways, because you looking at them like, so what? I can do what I want to do. With that attitude we have, I can do what I want to, dude, you can't, because you're killing yourself out. That's what all, like, you talk about the Planned Parenthood. You can't kill life out. You can't kill your future generations before they get here. Somehow we think that's okay, or we don't have to reproduce ourselves.
I mean, and then if you really took the time out to look up what happens to the fetuses from the Planned Parenthoods and what's been happening, what started happening at that time, you would really have a whole different point of view, maybe, because of the fact that This has been planned. They know your value, but you don't know it. And they have reaped benefits off the backs of our people for quite a while now.
Check what you think they was doing to your grandmamas and granddaddies checks and pensions and all that.
Oh, those checks and pensions were being utilized to build up their communities and support their wars and their idealisms and their economy. We didn't get it.
So,
Yep.
Basically all I'm saying is, look, so we see the history. I mean, we put a little history up here all the time, not a lot, because now, I mean, if you just look at the past 100 years, all it is a repeat. I mean, that's all it's been. They just keep doing the same old thing. The new generation that comes along, they train that generation how to treat you. And many of us, we don't mind joining them. I've heard brothers and sisters say, man, I'll do whatever the Chinese tell me to do if they pay me right to the Negro. There's brothers out there who help harvest your children. You know it. He didn't know. Dude. So that's what I'm saying. Those are the people who, like, I mean, you can't be honest. I think that's part of being that fiction, part of that character, part of playing that role. There's a part of yourself that you just have to get away from. You just have to turn your head on it.
Yeah. I mean, and then too, another thing that I think that we should mention about Dr. King is that if you look into Mahatma Gandhi was a blatant, I don't like Aboriginal people. I don't. And he was a pedophile. He slept with his little cousins naked in the bed and all kinds of things.
Right.
So for them to put Mahatma Gandhi in front of the MLK building, I guess in Atlanta or whatever, it's telling you what this was. Because especially if you come into the future now and you look at the Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine supposed Maxwell thing, and you hear the stories about the children being human trafficked and used for all of this and that and the other, you have to look at the onslaught of that. And for someone to embrace the ideology of someone who couldn't stand you, there's no turning the other cheek to that. There's no nonviolence. There's none of that. They by creating, in my opinion, with this, they've made us look docile, feeble-minded, as the eugenicists call us. Very feeble-minded.
Well, one of the sisters just wrote in the chat. Let me find it. Here we go. Martin told us he believed he led us into a burning house. So I mean, you've heard that, right?
Yeah, I've heard that.
You heard that. I heard it, and I've seen the context of what he said. Basically, he was saying, up. Nah, that's not the way to go. And I don't know if it was, because there's a picture where Martin Luther King and Malcolm X are shaking hands. Maybe it's a photo op. I don't know. But I'm sure they both, let off some steam on each other. And maybe it helped them. Maybe that what was needed. But that picture is iconic is because that's how all of us should be. That's how all of us should be. Could you imagine? Just be nice to each other. You ain't around each other 24 hours a day. Just be nice to each other.
Just be cordial to each other, because the term nice means to be foolish.
Okay, you know what I meant. I didn't mean that.
I know, but I had to throw it out there because that's another deep. We got to learn. You have to get the etymology dictionary and start looking up the words, because the words you use help and can't you.
One more time.
The words you use help and can't you. Words, spells, you saying things, spelling things. You have to learn the meanings of the words, because every word that we're using in this English language has another meaning. So keep that in mind when you're speaking.
That's something to take seriously.
Yes.
Yeah. So you want to go back to the, because there's something in this this interview that he's saying, that it's I don't get how that could be said at that time.
Right.
And then that's letting me know too that it was all a sham by just the shit he say.
Right.
So let's get back to that, because you guys this check out what this cat say. A lot of us only give Martin Luther King from what the TV tells us about him or what they teach us in school. Check out what this cat says. Haley, we shall overcome. To me, that's the shittiest song ever.
Mm-hmm.
Ever. Because it keeps you in a state of you never move.
You remain a victim.
You just we shall overcome someday. I hate that song. We Shall Overcome has become the unofficial song and slogan of the civil rights movement. Do you consider such inspirational anthems important to the morale?
In a sense, songs are the soul of a movement. Consider in World War II, praise the Lord and pass the ammunition, and in the World War I, over there in Tipperary, and during the Civil War, battle hymns of the Republic and John Brown's Body. A Negro song anthology would include sorrow songs, shouts for joy, battle hymns, anthems. Since slavery, the Negro has sung throughout his struggle in America, steal away and go down. Moses were the songs of faith and inspiration, which were sung on the plantations. For the same reasons the slaves sang, Negroes today sing freedom songs. For we, too, are in bondage. We sing out our determination that we shall overcome, black and white together. We shall overcome someday. I should also mention a song parody that I enjoyed very much, which the Negroes sang during our campaign in Albany, Georgia. It goes, I'm coming, and my head ain't bending low. I'm walking tall, I'm talking strong. I'm America's new Black Joe.
What? But I want to ask you a question, and I want to see if you noticed this now, how he was speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Look how the brother is speaking, which the Negroes today, it just seems odd. The Negro has sung. It's like the Negro. Who was the Negro? Is that like, what the African American would turn into, or what? Are African American spinoffs of the Negro? Yeah.
Yeah.
Are African Americans the children of Black people. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, these are things we got to look at. We can't run from these things. We can't ignore it because a lot of us ignore this stuff. We just listen to what the little blurb they put on TV, and we think we a genius on this stuff. So I think reading this type stuff about these people and listen to how they walk, listen to how they talk.
Mm-hmm.
You all you hear is "I have a dream" or whatever else they put up for you to listen to. But read and understand what these guys are saying. Your detractors in the Negro community refer to you snidely as "delawed" and Booker T. King. What's your reaction to this sort of Uncle Tom label?
I hear some of those names, but my reaction to them is never emotional. I don't think you can be in a public life without being called bad names. As Lincoln said, if I answer all criticism, I'd have time for nothing else. But with regard to both of the names you mentioned, I've always tried to be what I call a militantly nonviolent. That's an oxymoron. I don't believe that anyone could seriously accuse me of not being totally committed to the breakdown of segregation.
I don't understand that. Can you explain that one? Because I don't get it. I don't believe that anyone could seriously accuse me of not being totally committed to the breakdown of segregation. So what does that mean?
So I guess that means by being completely passive and letting people basically piss on you. And excuse my language, but that the outcome would be that that would end segregation. So by being ridiculed and everything like that, he showed that he had tough skin, so he could withstand it, and that would show how true he was to the cause of desegregation or segregation.
I'm still confused. I
Yeah.
don't know. Because I don't, I mean, militantly nonviolent.
But the militantly nonviolent thing, that's an oxymoron, because how can what so you put on fatigues and just sit down? I mean, I'm sorry. I know that's bad.
That's your view. Let's see what King has to say. What do you
Okay.
mean by militantly nonviolent?
I mean to say that a strong man must be militant as well as moderate. He must be a realist as well as an idealist. If I am to merit the trust invested in me by some of my race, I must be both of these things. That is why nonviolence is powerful as a just weapon. If you confront a man who has been cruelly misusing you and you say, "Punish me, if you will. I do not deserve it, but I will accept it so that the world will know I am right and you are wrong," then you wield a powerful and just weapon. This man, your oppressor, is automatically morally defeated. And if he has any conscience, he is ashamed. Wherever this weapon is used in a manner that stirs a communities wait, let me read that again. I'm sorry. Wherever this weapon is used in a manner that stirs a community's or a nation's anguished conscience, then the pressure of public opinion becomes an ally in your just cause. So is he saying that you need to be a victim to be heard?
I don't know. This. I don't know. And
I mean,
it was those type words.
yeah, because it's based. You can't punish me. Wait, punish me if you will. But I don't deserve it. So that doesn't make any sense.
Okay. Wasn't this dude like a Greek in a fraternity or something like that?
Which one, Haley or King?
King.
Yes.
I mean, so his answers, so what he's saying, Okay, so this is 1965, Playboy magazine,
Mm-hmm.
probably one of the most sought out magazines at that time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, and what this cat is saying, I mean, it's confusing to me. It's confusing, and I'm saying, well, what is he saying? And it's like how he says, the Negroes. It's like he's talking about a group of people that his self is not into, that he's not a part of.
Because he never
That's what
refers to himself.
he never refers to himself like that.
No, he doesn't.
The Negro struggle. You know what I'm saying? So this is what I'm saying, youngins. Notice the people who talk like that, because the people that they're talking about, they want those people to be you. You don't do that. You are a man here and you are here to do something. And you know what it is. Okay, let's keep going.
Okay.
Several of those stories dealt with you. Several of those stories dealt with you with your own nonviolent campaign against segregation in various southern cities, where you and your followers have been branded rabble rousers and outside agitators. Do you feel that you've earned those labels?
Wherever the early Christians appeared spreading Christ's doctrine of love, the resident power structure accused them of being disturbers of the peace and outside agitators. But the small Christian band continued to teach and amplify love, convincing that they were a colony of heaven on this earth, who were missioned to obey not man but God. If those of us who employ nonviolent direct action today are dismissed by our white brothers as rabble rousers and outside agitators, if they refuse to support our nonviolent efforts and goals, we can be assured that the summer of 1965 will be no less long and hot than the summer of 1964. Our white brothers must be made to understand that nonviolence is a weapon fabricated of love. It is a sword that heals. A nonviolent direct action program has an objective not the creation of tension, but the surfacing of tensions already present. We set out to precipitate a crisis situation that must open the doors to negotiation. I am not afraid of the word crisis and tension. I deeply oppose violence, but constructive crisis and tension are necessary for growth. Innate in all life and all growth is tension. Only in death is there the absence of tension. To cure injustices, you must expose them before the light of human conscience and the bar of public opinion, regardless of whatever tensions that exposure generates. Injustice to the Negro must be brought out to the open where they cannot be evaded.
I don't get it. Tension? What's tension?
I guess the tension was the fact that that we were at that time under the Jim Crow laws, and so we didn't have the same supposed privileges as everyone else.
So this is all I'm saying. This is so when you say this is a setup, everybody can see it. This is why I'm saying this is a setup.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, god damn. I mean, but it gets me how the Negro is like you're blacking out all the faces of the people. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's like you're leading some people somewhere. And it wasn't tension. These people were killing. These people were killing people all over the place just to clear the land. You know that.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't stop to this day. They try to kill the land. If you
Mm-hmm.
ever, check out the Vietnam War, you've heard of the substance that they sprayed called
Agent Orange.
Agent Orange. But
Mm-hmm.
did you know that they also had an, a product called Agent Blue? You know what Agent Blue did?
No, tell me. I've never heard of it, honestly.
Most people. I just ran across it one day. You know what Agent Blue did?
What?
Killed the earth.
Oh.
Agent Orange killed the plants and the foliage because it was kind of jungle in Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
Agent Agent Blue killed the earth. It killed the land. That's what I'm saying. So this is what I'm saying. And what's so about Vietnam? This is what I heard from a few brothers who've been in. Man, the brothers coming from Vietnam in the early 70s were messed up. And they'll tell you they survived because there was a war to kill them out. And this is the thing we do. We go fight in other places. The other places come over here, take over the industry in your neighborhood, but you cleared the way for it.
Yeah, because all the nail salons that everybody goes gets their nails done at, those are all owned by Vietnamese people.
Okay. You said that.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question for you.
Yep.
How much? I know you don't know the exact, but from what you see, how much do you think those Vietnamese nail salons are taking in yearly from the ends they make from the African American community?
Trillions. Trillions. And it's not being used here to support the economy on American soil.
So how come we don't see that? How come we don't see that? Because of that civil rights movement.
Mm-hmm.
It trained it out of you. You keep the person next to you rich with you. You buy from your folks. That's what they do. That's what everybody else does.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody buys from you. Nobody. Yeah, okay, a couple of people. But I'm talking about how it's done here nationally.
Oh, of course. I mean, it's like, perfect example for me, Carrie, is like, my crocheting that I do and people that don't support me. My customer base that I have is not anybody from my community.
Yeah, that's so see, that's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
That's my whole thing about this whole Martin Luther King and let's integrate and all that. It made it where we don't look out for ourselves.
At
We
all.
look out for other people. We'll make sure other people kids eat before we make sure our own.
Mm-hmm.
You mean we're not supporting Black farmers with all the stuff we eat? Huh?
And then this government and that's in office pays gives the Black farmers money not to grow. And they've also went through and bullied them off of some of their land, and Bill Gates have bought it, but that's a whole nother subject.
Well, it's out there in everybody's face.
Mm-hmm.
You can't miss. I mean, if you're a liar, If you constantly lie, then you can avoid it. But if you're thinking about seriously surviving this, you better look to yourself, your family. Who are you connected to? Who are your grandparents? Who are your great great grandparents? Who are you guys? You're not what everybody tells you you are. You come from a people who did some bad shit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, seriously, shouldn't we be on that? So listen, we about to close it out, but the whole thing. Well, Nicole, tell us what this new thing, this King interview with Alex Haley. What did you get out of it?
Well, for one, I got out of it that it was a setup, like we've already discussed. But I also got out of it that, in my opinion, throughout the
What
whole,
do you mean? What do you mean? Give me an example of how it was set up.
it's set up because of the fact of all the things that took place before this happened, before the interview happened, before the civil rights movement happened. It was a setup to kind of seal the deal to go into the next generation of Negro people, because if you get this to the parents, and the parents teach this to the children, then the children are going to teach it to their children, and we end up with today. We end up with today. I mean, it's like, if you really look at it, they've taken the term Negro and all the other things that they've called us in the past, and now we've become, or some of us have become, African American. And being an African American, you've become a social construct, and you are owned by the government. That title is a government issued name. So they feel like they can do whatever they want to you. And by doing whatever they want to you, that means poisoning your water, controlling your food, making you vaccinate, spraying the air, killing your children, shooting you down in the middle of the street. And they know that we don't know the laws. They know that we don't know the laws because we've been removed from the laws that apply to us. And there are specific laws that apply to us as a people. And so this interview just lets me see how far removed we are from who we truly are as a collective, because of all of the circle talking he spoke of. And he always referred to us as Negro people, like we were alien or something. And it to me, that's like pushing us further off the land. Here, the Negro people, not myself, who was a Negro person, the Negro people, not me, but the Negro people. And look how it ended up for him. Didn't work out well, did it? For him nor his wife.
So this is what I'm saying, folks. Find your family, study your family. You might be from the Caribbean somewhere. You might be from South America somewhere. Find your folks.
All still America.
All still America.
All still America.
And for the indigenous people here, remember this. All these people didn't come with what they have now. You gave it away. See, that's one thing about the African Americans that keep African Americans confused.
Mm-hmm.
You participated in this. You said it was cool. You okayed it by your silence. A lot of times you join them into helping them rid the planet of us. We're good at that, ain't we?
I got something else to throw in when you're done.
Go ahead.
Another thing is that you might want to pull out your birth certificate, because your birth certificate was the signing you into the system. And it's not a valid contract because you yourself did not sign your birth certificate. Start looking into these things, because once you learn that that piece of paper is not valid, it's going to change a lot of things for you. I mean, there's just a lot to learn for all of us. And my suggestion is that you start learning how to do so and changing the political status that they have you listed as in every aspect known, and start claiming your birthright, which is your land.
I'm on it.
Me too.
You gotta do that. You can't let people come in and tell you who you are, what you are.
Nope.
You've seen they've been writing the script from you since King, and I'm sure way before that.
Mm-hmm.
Just to move you in a position, to put you in the Negroes, the blacks. You know what? Huh? I'm sure your people didn't call themselves the blacks. I'm sure your people didn't call themselves Negroes.
Right. I
They
agree.
call them, and those names are all over the country. That we act like we don't understand what they say. See, that's our problem. We have passed by villages that our folks used to live in, and we'll right by them like we ain't never been into them. But other people come and see what your ancestors left for you, but you don't want. You want to live in New York. You want to live in LA. And
You
your
want to
people,
rock Dolce and Gabbana. For what?
and your people left you all kinds of land that why we refuse to do something with it. I don't understand why. But anyway, I'm going to waste any more of your time. I'm going to go ahead and let everybody enjoy their night. Listen, I really appreciate you guys hanging with us tonight. And like we said about that, write your own history. You do something.
Change your narrative. Definitely.
Change your narrative. So you guys have a good night, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
Good night, everybody.